Hello, everyone. As you know, we have started 4Ps model for uh, speech, or how do you plan your speech. Due to this instant break in our classes, we are going to resume from where we have left. So we talked about planning your speech. How do you plan your speech? We have already talked about it. We were discussing, when you were planning your speech, we were discussing about the about knowledge of your audience. We've already discussed the general age of the audience, the general gender of the audience. How does it affect the educational standards, the social status? We are still left with the interest, qualifications, and expectations. We are going to talk about that. So before planning your speech, you have to look into the interest of the audience. If you don't know who your audience are, that is their interest. For instance, if say boys are sitting in front of me, we know that when I'm giving examples from makeup products, they are not going to get it because they don't have interest in that. So obviously you have to come up with such examples which are going to be interested or sounds interesting to the audience. Audiences can be of any age, as we've already discussed, gender, educational background. So all these information of your audience are going to overlap. Then we have qualifications. Qualification is almost linked with the educational standards as well. So what is the qualification of the audience sitting in front of you, whether they are PhDs, or whether they are BS students, or that is undergraduate students, or they are professionals, they are experienced people sitting in front of you. So you need to know prior to your presentation who are your audience and what are their qualifications. General expectations. General expectations cover the expectations of the audience from you, from the presenter. That is, if an audience is coming, or a group of people are coming to the to certain presentation, or to certain seminar, or to a workshop, or to a class, they are there for some purpose. They have something in their mind. They already perceive that what are we going to take from this when we leave. What do we expect this person to tell us? And that's when you have the expectations. You need to know what are the expectations of your audience. For instance, here in the class, when I give a lecture, what do you people expect? You people expect me to explain each and everything so that when you leave this class, you know what is the meaning, or what is the meaning of planning a presentation, or how do you plan a presentation. You need all the information based on planning your presentation or planning your speech. So these are your expectations. If I don't know your expectations, I won't be able to cover up my presentation, and I won't be able to plan properly. So you have to plan properly depending on what your audience desire or wants. Okay, back to the we were done with the planning of the speech, because see, the point is you need to know your audience. Here you need to know your audience. Knowing the venue, that is also very important. That is knowing the venue, that is where are you going to present, that is, do you know about the size of the place wherever you are presenting. So there are certain things that you need to keep in your mind. So the first point is, when planning your presentation, you need to know the size of the venue. So let's suppose if I'm presenting in an auditorium, the presentation is going to be different, because the audience that I'm going to expect are going to be more than 50, because auditorium can occupy more than 50 people. Definitely more than 50 people means that I am going to have this in my mind, that I'm going to have opposed audience, as we have already discussed opposed audience and committed audience, and the audience who have no interest. So uh, you have to keep this thing in your mind. What is the size of the venue? The size of the venue would also tell you whether you have to um, whether you have to have some audio appliances, that is mic or presentation, in the form of slides. Then what do you need for that? Would you be able to reach to all of the audiences, to all of the audience? That is also important. Effect of a large hall and a small audience. You need to know if your audience are the size of the audience is less, and the venue is, the place is a large place. That is, let's suppose your audiences are 10 or 20. Number of the people who are attending your presentation are 10 or is 10 or 20, and you are presenting in front of them in the in the auditorium, then obviously it is going to have a negative impact on them, because a place where it would seem empty, and that does not feel good. It gives a very wrong impression. So you need to know the size of the place where you're presenting, as well as the size of the audience. Arrangement of seating, well, it depends on why you are presenting, the reason you are presenting, as well as depending on the personal choices of the presenter. For instance, in workshops, some prefer uh, arrangements of groups. That is, the seating arrangements should be in the form of groups, so that after some presentations, you can ask them to do something, some activities. In that case, it would depend on why you are presenting and what you have already planned. So if you have already planned, and the arrangement of the seating is depended depending on how you want it to be, then you can ask them for the changes. If the seating arrangement is already determined, that is, it's already fixed, or which cannot be moved, it cannot be changed, it's already fixed. For example, in some conference rooms, the seats are already fixed over there. You cannot move the seats. So your seating arrangement is already fixed. You cannot change it. So obviously you have to keep this in your mind while planning your presentation, and you have to plan your presentation according to the seating arrangements. So you cannot ask after some presentation, you cannot ask someone to sit in groups and do some activity. Obstacle between audience and speaker. You may have some obstacles. Obstacles means problem. So if you have some certain problem with the audience and the speaker, now how do we solve that problem? If you have um, a lot of um, space available which is vacant, and your audience is less, then you do not need speakers, you do not need mic. If your audience is a large number of a large number of people, then you need a speaker for that, and you need a mic for that. So sometimes the audience, the link between the audience and the speaker is not correct. That is, for example, if I am without mic, if I am giving a lecture in auditorium, for instance, obviously the audience, all of the audience, especially the backbenchers, they are not going to listen to me properly. My lecture is not going to be audible to them. Therefore, it is very important that you must have mic. Then with that mic, it's also necessary that the quality of the speakers should also be good. Let's take the example when you are presenting something and the quality of your voice is fine, mics are fine, but the speaker is making a groovy sound, which is with the bass sound. And if it is with the bass sound, you won't be able to hear it properly. You won't be able to comprehend what the speaker is saying. Therefore, when you are presenting, it must be necessary that you must look into the obstacles of the speaker, and it covers up all the audio appliances, not just the speakers and the mic. Where will you speak? If you're speaking from platform note, height above the audience, or distance from the audience, it also depends. When you are standing right on the stage and there is a lot of distance in between you and the audience, then you need to have plan your presentation in a way that it may not create any hindrance in listening or in communicating with the audience. Because sometimes if a person in the audience overall, or any person in the audience, is unable to see you, they're going to lose their interest in the presentation. So you have to keep this thing in your mind, that when you are planning your presentation, you have to look into this aspect where you'll be presenting. Now, how would it impact your planning of the presentation? You can add examples. You can add points like, let me talk to the backbenchers, or you can add in your presentation certain slides that would cover the front audience, then the middle audience, and then the back audience. This is how you're going to plan your presentation if there is a lot of distance between you and the audience. If it is, for instance, a class where everyone can listen to you properly, then there's no need of such planning. But it is very important to know prior to your presentation that how much distance do you have with the audience, or are you going to be, standing on the stage, or are you going to present from the um, like from the same level where your audiences are? Okay, if you have a dais, right, rostrum, if you have to stand behind that, or whether you have to stand without it, it has a lot of impact in planning your presentation, because if you have a dice, you can keep your handwritten notes on that, hard copies, from which you can take aid or help. But if you don't have a rostrum or dice, then you must be standing in the um, middle of the hall or the class or wherever you are presenting, and you will be moving your self from one place to another. Though you may also do that when you have dice, but it would, you have to keep this in your mind, that when you have dice, you would be looking into some help from there. That is, you might keep your notes or hard copies, as we have already discussed, that hard copies are very important for the backup as well. You must have a hard copy of the presentation as a backup. You can keep that over there. If not, then you have to keep yourself prepared that you cannot have any handwritten notes. So you have to keep the information either in your slides, which you can access while you are presenting, or you can memorize them. Okay. The lighting issue. Why the lighting is important? The lighting is important because if it is dark, so the audience would lose interest. If it is very, very bright, then it's going to be helpful for them as well. For example, if we have presentation, or you're presenting to some people in the ground, it would be a bit, the sunlight is going to be a bit problematic when it comes to presentation. But if it is something which is some place where it's like, for example, classroom, but the light is very dim, then the presentation is going to be affected. You can also use visual aids when you are presenting, and that is, for example, if you have presentations, it has happened so many times that you might have seen your teachers when they are showing you some videos or pictures within the presentation, they asked you to switch off the lights. It is because they want you to take interest and only to focus on the presentation or on the activity that they are asking you to do. Therefore, it depends on you and the way you want to plan it, but you have to keep in your mind what is the lighting and how you're going to you're going to plan it according to your according to the lighting in the place where you are presenting. Okay, let's talk about the distractions. Distractions, as I've already told you, that even the light can be a distraction. So large windows can be distraction when you're presenting. Noise, not necessarily traffic noise, but all kinds of noise. When we studied our first topic, components of communication, we discussed noise. So that noise, the physical noise, as I've already explained it to you, the noise can be of any kind. That can be causing the distractions. Air conditioning noise, which we sometimes face, which we sometimes face this problem, and construction work. These are the same things which are related to the noise, temperature of the room, which is, for example, if the ACs are not working properly and it's suffocating inside the room, the ventilators are not there, or ventilation is not there. Something like that would also affect your um, uh, your presentation. So you need to, keep these things in your mind when you are presenting. Test of the acoustics, we have already talked about that. That is you need to check all the things before your presentation, but for that we'll come to the rest of the um, uh, planning of your speech. We are going to discuss it. The size of the audience we have already discussed. Okay, and let's go back to, yes, so here it is. Preparing your speech. Now, once you're done with the planning, the next step is preparing your speech. Now, the speech or the presentation, when you're preparing that, you should keep the theme in your mind. Now, sometimes it happens that you are asked to choose the theme by yourself, or it can be the other way around. That is, you are given the theme and then you have to present. It may happen in your class presentation as well. Sometimes the teachers ask you to choose your topic by yourself. This means that the theme of the topic is to be chosen by the students. But sometimes it happens that the teacher already gives you the theme, the topic, and then you have to present and prepare your presentation according to that. So um, you have to keep in your mind that the title of your presentation is very important. Now, it happens that when we give a presentation to the students, they normally take the same topic or the title as it is. If it is the name of any theory, then fine, you can keep it the way it is. However, if it is not the name of any theory, then you can tamper with the name, that is with the title, and you can come up with something interesting in order to impress your audience. In that way, you can also score good if it is a class presentation. Okay, so what is the most important thing when it comes to preparing your presentation? The opening and introduction. It is obvious that in your presentation there are three important parts. One is opening, the second is body, and the third is conclusion. Conclusion can be based on one slide or two slides. However, body may be more than 3 to 4 slides depending on your topic. It may extend to 20 slides as well, depending on the time as well, how much time you have been given to present, and as well as on the topic of your presentation. Coming towards opening or introduction. Now, opening and introduction is normally the introduction of the title or the theme or the topic of your presentation. You have to introduce your theme to your audience. It may not take more than 1 minute to 2 minutes, because introduction may cover only 1 or 2 slides. Introduction is not about the background. It's just introducing what your topic is. Remember, you have to be specific. You have to decide whether the topic of your presentation needs to have a background, or whether the topic of your presentation needs to have only introduction. Now, if your introduction does not need any background, then you don't need to tell the whole story. So, for example, if you're presenting about lung cancer and then later on you're coming towards the causes, then before your presentation starts, you have to elaborate what lung cancer is, or what cancer is, and how many types of cancers are there. And so you have to define. That is introduction. There is no need of giving background. It's only introduction to your topic. You have to introduce. Okay. You have to set a direction as well. Within introduction, if you give options how your presentation is going to follow, what point after this slide and what point after the other slide and what point after the third and the fourth and the fifth slide, it would be easy for the audience to look into the direction how you would follow your presentation. That is, for instance, if it is internet, so you introduce internet, then your introduction would also cover the advantages of internet, the disadvantages of internet, and then you can go for the conclusion. Okay. The very, very important point is, do not repeat your title again and again. While you are introducing your topic, do not explain a lot, as I've told you that you are the person who knows the best whether your presentation requires background or whether it requires only introduction. So let's suppose if you are presenting regarding Oppo phones, mobile phones, do you think defining mobile phones would be necessary? Giving a background would be necessary? No. Why? Because we expect all our audience to know what is mobile phone. However, you need to explain that there are different brands when it comes to mobile phones. And among those brands, Oppo phones are the ones you're going to, give your presentation about. So you can go for introduction in that way. And in that case, you cannot go for the background because sometimes backgrounds are not necessary. How you can attract the attention of the audience, or one of the ways in which you can attract the attention of the audience and make your introduction more interesting is by asking questions. You might have noticed that even your teachers ask you questions, though they know that they have not presented anything yet, but it automatically helps in a flow towards the communication. So therefore, asking a question is a good option. Okay, giving a sincere compliment is also very important. That is, if they have answered a question correct, answered a question incorrect, or some portion or some part of their answer is correct, you can give them a compliment. Using a quotations, you can start your introduction with quotations as well in order to impress your audience and in order to make your presentation more impressive. Coming towards body, your body is something which comes after introduction and before conclusion. That is, it covers examples, it covers the explanation, which we have already discussed in detail in the previous classes, which covers the elaboration of any point which is related to your title or topic. It may also include certain stories. It may also include aids visual aids. That is, if you want to show any picture, if you want to share any video with this with the audience, you can also, you know, add videos and pictures. It would make it more interesting for the audience. It would keep them entertained. Now, we have already discussed this in how to make things memorable, and that is, you have to add humor. Humor not in the sense which becomes offensive, but humor in the sense that you can add some funny memes while you're presenting. It would make um, make your audience feel that they are taking part in the presentation as well. You can ask them questions. You can play a game as well, that is some puzzle or some query. You can throw a query. Okay, coming towards the conclusion. Now, conclusion is normally mm, what people think is that conclusion is summarizing what you have said. Now, that can be summarization of what you have already discussed in the previous slides. However, it would be important to give conclusion on the basis of what you think about the topic. Conclusion includes not only summarization of what you have already said, but also how you think it has positive impact and why, or it has negative impact and why, or you think it has both neutral. For instance, I gave you example of internet. So if you are presenting, your presentation topic is on internet, and you give advantages and disadvantages, then towards the conclusion you can state that whether internet is a positive thing or whether internet is a negative thing, whether it has more pros or cons. So it depends on your idea. You have to thank the audiences towards then, which is very important. Though this last slide of thank you seems very, cliche, but that is ordinary. But you have to thank the audience towards the end. It is very important. You can also share some links with them towards the end, so that they may try to understand the further topics related to that presentation. Or if you think anyone is interested in knowing more than what you have explained, you can also give links to that. You can also share uh, extra notes or videos with your audience. Okay, let us conclude this topic over here with the most important thing, that is practice. Practice is something which is key factor in presenting the best or in your speech. Now, how you can practice? We all practice our presentations, and normally this is very common with our students, that they normally present in front of their class fellows, in front of their classmates. You can present in front of your family in order to gain feedback whether you're doing it right or whether you're doing it wrong. You can also record your presentation in order to know where your flaws are or where do you need to improve. You can also see whether your presentation is in a logical flow or not. whether you are following your presentation in a proper sequence, or your audience would be able to know the sequence the way you are following your presentation, whether they'll be able to follow it in this particular sequence as you are presenting or not. As well as you can identify the distractions in that. That is, which point or which factor in your presentation is not appropriate. You can also specify a time period if you have been given a time period. That is, for example, in your class presentations, the teacher already assigns you a specific time period. That is, you have to present for 15 minutes, or you have 15 minutes time, or 10 minutes, and then the rest of the uh, time is going to be given to the question answer session. You can also ensure whether your presentation is would be covered up in a specific time period or not. The last and the important point is presentation of your speech. We have already discussed many parts of this, but let us just revise and conclude here. When you're presenting your speech, you have to keep certain things in your mind. Your first impression. Your first impression is not just your eye contact, but also your dressing. Now, when it comes to dressing for the presentation, it's very important. You have to make your audience know that you are prepared. And the first thing to show them that you are prepared is when you dress up properly. There is, dress code for each event. So if you're at home, you roam around casual. Have you ever wore, a three-piece suit at your home just because you want to sleep? No. It would seem odd. Same is the case when you are presenting. Can you come in your pajamas or in your sleeping suit? No. You cannot come for your presentation in your jeans. This is very common mistake that our students commit all the time. You're not supposed to come in jeans. Boys are not supposed to present in jeans. It is very informal dressing for the presentations. So you have to keep this thing in your mind, that you have to dress up properly. Boys can wear a dress pant with a tie, shirt and tie, and that would be helpful. It's not necessary that you are wearing three-piece, but at least this much would be you know um, helpful as well. T-shirts are informal when it comes to dressing for your presentations. For females, though you don't have any female in your class, but for females, um, wearing appropriate dress is also very important. You should always wear something in which you are comfortable. That is, for females, if they wear heels, and they are not comfortable in that, and they are unable to present, then preparing themselves and wearing heels is not appropriate. So for females, they have to wear something in which they are comfortable, but that does not mean that they are coming in informal dress. They also have to wear something formal for their presentation, in order to let the teacher or let the audience know that they are well prepared. And the second thing, when it comes to presentation and uh, presenting your presentation, is your eye contact. You have to establish eye contact with almost every audience. Why is it necessary? It's necessary because in that way the audience would feel that you are giving them importance. And if you're you're establishing eye contact with only one person or only two or three people among the audience, and then it would mean that you're only giving your attention to those three um, people in the audience, and the reason would be that they are nodding to you. When this is human psyche, that when you look at the audience and one person is nodding to you or giving you gestures in the form of nod, then you automatically have your attention towards that one person. But you have to avoid that. You have to establish your eye contact with everyone, so that even if anyone is not interested in your presentation, they would automatically get interested, because you are establishing eye contact with them. You must have a confident body language. And how are you going to communicate your confident body language? By roaming around in in the middle of your presentation, not roaming around like you are, roaming around in the class or in the auditorium. But you are not supposed to stay passive. You have to be active. Do not hide behind the dice, or do not stand in one place and not moving. If you are not moving, then the audience are also going to feel the lack of activity in your presentation. So if you want to uh, communicate your positive impact on the audience, um, you have to move yourself. Your body language, it's not that you are, all the time moving your hands. It should be in a moderate way. That is, do not move your hands a lot. Do not move your hands at all. You are not supposed to keep your hands in your pocket. It is a very informal gesture. So when you're presenting, please do not keep your hands in your pocket. It seems informal. You have to be relaxed when you're presenting, and always stay positive when you are presenting. Or why stay positive and how stay positive? You can, when you have counter questions when you are presenting, sometimes it happens that the presenter gets offended. You should not get offended with your opposed audience, as we have already discussed opposed audiences. So if you are getting offended with the opposed audience, then the impact of your presentation is not going to be positive. So therefore, you have to be, you know, accepting towards all kinds of ideas, accept them, and after that, give your counter argument with logical arguments. You can convince them why do you disagree with whatever they are saying. Okay. Build your rapport with your audiences. Now, what is that rapport? One is report and one is rapport talk. Rapport talk is opposite to report. Report is giving information. However, rapport is when you are creating emotional bonds with your audience. Emotional bonds is that you have to be sincere with them. You have to show the positive image. You have to elaborate things on the basis of the truth value, not because you like something. So you have to keep this thing in your mind. You are not supposed to talk in I statements, that is, I want, or I I believe. No. Try to, talk in we, because when you use the word we, it automatically includes your audience. If you say I or if you say you, automatically it will create a distance between the audience and you. So do not create distance between the audience and yourself and therefore try to use the term we. For instance, we all know. So if you say we all know, automatically your audience would feel that they are standing right next to you in whatever you are saying after this. Okay. As we've already discussed that when you are planning your presentation, you have to keep the interest of your audience in your mind, and you have to keep the interest of your audience in your mind. So for instance, if you are presenting on some political issue and you must have a post audience in front of you, and you have um, and the audience who are accepting as well, so you have to keep the interest of both audiences. So when you are stating some fact, you have to keep this in mind, that you are not offending the opposed audience. So you have to keep this thing in your mind when you are presenting. Involving your audience. How would you involve your audience? Through questions, through activities that we have already discussed. So you can ask them questions. You can them uh, ask them to do some activity with you, or you can show them some pictures, or you can involve them through games as well. You can do a lot of things when it comes to involving your audience. um, Only keeping an eye contact with your audience would also be an involvement. Okay. um, then we have hold the attention of the audience. How are you going to hold the attention of the audience? If you are dull and you're not enthusiastic would be um, you are communicating your ideas properly. They know from your body language and from your quality of your voice that you are interested in giving a presentation to them. That's how you're going to be enthusiastic. Now, if you are enthusiastic, only then you will be able to attain the attention of your audience and retain it as well. But when it comes to a person whose quality of voice is dull, that would automatically make you sleepy. That is, the audience would feel sleepy when it comes to the quality of voice. If it is not enthusiastic, it is not lively, then this audience would lose interest and you would not be able to attain their attention. You can also use vivid words, as you know, even today in this presentation or in this audio recording. I have used words which are more, easy for you to understand. Even if I have used a word which is I believe difficult for you to comprehend or understand, I have used an equivalent word which is more easy for you to understand. So you have to keep this in your mind, that you are not using difficult terminology which your audience uh, will not understand. You are not going to impress them by using uh, difficult words. You have to impress them by giving proper presentation enthusiastically, by using easy examples, and by using vivid words. Vivid means easy words, clear words, where there is no confusion in the words. So you have to use a clear language, easy language, which your audience can understand. Express yourself clearly and concisely. Do not elaborate things a lot. If you elaborate things a lot, it would become boring for the audience as well. Clarify your point and do not repeat your point again and again. So, concise means you have to be exact in whatever you are saying. Support whatever you are saying with the logical arguments, and your argument would automatically be concise. Don't beat around the bushes. That's the simple way in which I can say that. Okay, have an upbeat voice that we have already discussed in being enthusiastic. So you have to be um, enthusiastic through the quality of your voice. Uh, that's all for today. You have to um, remember your presentation, and when you're presenting it, you have to be clear when you're presenting it. Once you're done with the presentation, you can ask your audience for the question answer. If you believe that the question answer session within the presentation is very important, that is, it may lose its value. The question, that is, if the question asked after the presentation may lose its value, then you may allow question answer within the presentation. However, the decorum of a presentation is that once you're done with presenting, the questions are to be asked towards the end. However, it depends on you as a presenter, because sometimes a question may lose its value, a question may not be important when the presentation ends. So therefore you can allow questions within the session. However, you can ask your audience to pose questions towards the end of the presentation as well. And then thank them all for giving you time and for their patience. Give them some value because they have listened to you and they have taken interest, and there your presentation would end. Thank you.